Just sent the link. I mean, it, it's the same camera, so might not. Sorry, I'm good to go now. Alrighty, Spyro, can you still hear me? Bear with us as... Spyro, can you hear me? Spyro? Alrighty. Hello.
Ahoy.
Alrighty, we're
What?
good to go.
We're live?
We are live. So, welcome
Roger.
to round 2 of the UDL World Endurance Championship season. This is the first endurance round. The race will be 2 hours and 30 minutes instead of the normal 2 hours that we do for sprint racing. So, an extra 30 minutes to spice things up. It's going to be at the Silverstone circuit in the UK. Same qualifying format and same race format as before, but again, just 30 minutes longer. As, yes, Spyro, you do have control of the cameras. So, out first is the GTE cars for their 10-minute qualifying session.
And we are in Great Britain today, the lovely United Kingdom. Yeah. Apologies if I start stuffing up, folks, because I am still learning the controls of how these camera angles work, as I'm used to the Formula One series, as this is my first crack at the World Endurance Championships. I think I'm getting the hang of it though, Dylan. How are you today?
Pretty good. Excited for a fantastic race. I've heard that the LMP1 field is going to be very close this race. Here in GTE, as the cars take to the track for their outlaps, it seems word going around the grid is that the Ferraris are struggling a little bit to get the rears to bite up how they want, struggling with rear grip, especially through the S's. But should be a great race between the Ford and the Corvette, and we'll just have to wait and see if the Ferraris got their tuning down pat.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a nice race today amid all the, how do you say, all the controversy and all the unfortunate events that are taking place in the world at the moment amid the COVID-19 disease. So we hope we can bring you some racing to watch from home, as there is not many sports that are taking place throughout the world.
Indeed, league racing and e-racing across various sim platforms has been where it has been at recently with the coronavirus going around, so hopefully we can be one of your races that you stay tuned for and watch, as Stallard is coming through the end of the first sector on an outlap as some of the drivers get ready to start their first flying laps.
Yeah, I think it is going to be an interesting time for our generation, because I believe esports is going to get the deserved fan base that it. Looks like Star took that corner there.
Big save there. That is one of the. Ooh, go ahead.
I was just about to say that I think it's time for esports to really give the shining light that it deserves. It's been a long time coming, and I think more and more people are getting involved.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, right now there's only 15 cars in the grid. Racer he's experiencing some technical difficulties right now. Hopefully he'll be in for the race, but he will be missing qualifying, unfortunately. But yeah, we're expecting a full grid for this race. And full grid for the rest of the season, as we have a couple driver changes happening.
So we have a 30-minute session. We're about 26 minutes to go at this stage, as drivers will begin their laps onto their qualifying to form up the grid. So as it stands, we currently have 15 drivers, but we are pending an extra driver or two to access into the race at some point.
Still 6 LMP1 cars. We're expecting 6 LMP1 cars, 4 LMP2, and then the 6 GTE cars, just like our last round at COTA. As the first drivers are coming into the final sector here, as we follow Warrior through the S's. Apologies in advance, I don't have the best track knowledge of Silverstone as far as corner names go.
Silverstone is a very well-known Formula 1 track. It is believed to be one of the best on the Formula 1 calendar, as the FIA would say. Looks like we have our first couple of blokes cross the line as Superpig, as I was about to say, Superpig took the fastest lap, but it is Dale the Whale that has taken the fastest lap. He's got a 55.8.
Yeah, 55.8. We're expecting 55s in qualifying, maybe a couple 54s. But interesting to see that the Corvettes seem to have the pace strong on. Remember, in qualifying, cars come out of the pits on cold tires. In the race, they will have the tires already heated when they get put onto the car. So, don't necessarily need to tune the car for cold tires, but usually, if a car is good on cold tires, it's good on the tires once they get warmed up. So interesting to see how this plays out, as indeed the Ferraris do still seem to be struggling a little bit, as their first laps they're currently 5th and 6th in class.
Out of the manufacturers today, Dylan, who do you think will come out on top, or who do you think is more adaptable to this type of track here at Silverstone?
Honestly, I think the Corvettes have a good shot here. The WEC Ford team is Multimatic Run, which is based in the UK, so it's pretty much as close to a home race as Ford will get other than COTA. But I think the Corvettes will shine strong this race.
Do you have any particular drivers that you are going to be looking out for today?
Snipper has seemed strong in testing, but right now he's trailing Dale by 6/10 still, so we'll see what this next lap is as he comes through the final corner, and it will be not an improvement. So as
Snipper still 600ths of a second off the pace.
Indeed, surprisingly still over a second back to the Fords, as Warrior jumps up in one of the Fords. As I say that, just under 3/4 of a second. Very close for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th now, as all 3 drivers are within 2.5 tenths of each other, it seems. Oh wait, no, apologies, I missed the one. So big jump from 3rd to 4th, but 2nd and 3rd, excuse me, are very close together.
We've got 6 drivers who are so far set at pace laps.
Warrior, big save.
got a few drivers in the pits. Thoughts behind drivers staying in the pits? Is it to work more on the car, or is it to work more on strategy?
Right now, it is a GTE qualifying session, so how our qualifying format works is the 6 GTE cars get the first 10 minutes, as they only have about 2 minutes left, so they'll have time for one more lap after they cross the line. Then the LMP2 drivers will come out for their 10-minute qualifying session, and finally the LMP1 cars will round out qualifying here at Silverstone. So these drivers are starting their final laps. As you can see just how hard they're pushing us. Warrior almost lost it in the second sector when we were following him. So it's make or break time for these drivers right now.
This is why I've got you, Dylan, because, see, I wouldn't have known that. So again, apologies to the folks at home watching. Still learning how this all works. So as it stands, we have obviously 6 drivers that'll take it, and then we'll move to the next 6 once the 10-minute mark is up. As there probably is other drivers out there watching that are still learning how the World Endurance Championship works too. It looks like Dale is still taking the lead at the 55.6, followed by the Cuddly Koala.
Which he's returned to the pits, so his qualifying is done. That's as good as he will do. A 156.362.
As the pig is currently just over 1,000 of a second off. Sorry. 46 seconds left in the session for drivers to properly complete the current lap they're on. So it's snipper sets. Don't think he improves, so he's still sitting in 3rd position.
So in GTE, we're down to 2 cars who are going to finish out the session, as we'll see what Snipper and Stallard can do, as they're currently running 3rd and 6th. Stallard's looking for a big jump, as the checkered flag is out for GTE cars, and LMP2 cars head out. So Stallard is not able to... Oh, he does leapfrog his teammate, but still 5th and 6th, as Snipper improves, but not enough. Just 0.03 of a second separating him from Koala. So in GTE, it will be Corvette and Ferrari on the front row as the LMP2 cars head out onto the track.
So forming up for the LMP2, we've got Kane Dodger, we've got Rantika, my apologies for the pronunciation, Rantika.
His nickname is Big R, as Arnatiko, no one's quite sure how to pronounce his name, so he goes by Big R.
Along with Daniel and Driver. And then we've got finishing off with...
Those are the LMP8 cars. Right now there's only 3 LMP2 cars in the grid, as Racer's still trying to sort out his technical difficulties.
My apologies, my eyes are a bit shit without my glasses on.
Yeah, you're good.
It's really hard to see the LMP H2 or the
Expecting
3 drivers doing.
Expecting a slightly bigger class difference between the classes here than there was at COTA, as the 3rd sector at COTA really helped the GTE cars lap speed compared to the LMP2s. A lot more high-speed corners here than at COTA, even though COTA has that flowing Sector 1S section. So, should be a slightly larger class split here. Intersport is the car to beat, as he proved himself strongly at Texas by winning by, can't remember, as it was 2 weeks ago. I think he almost won by a lap. Big R's hoping for a cleaner run than he had at Texas after he got damaged before the green flag even fell. So We'll see what these drivers can do as we ride on Intersport, coming onto the hangar straight out of the first sector.
Looks like he's today 204, Dylan.
That was just his outlap. Certain cars, depending where you come out on pit lane, you can trip the timing sensor before you leave pit lane, so that's his outlap on cold tires, as it may take a lap and a half to 2 laps for these cars to warm their tires, as they don't weigh as much as the GTE cars, so it'll take longer for them to warm their tires. That corner Intersport just went through, the old turn 1. That will be one of the corners we will be watching for as far as track limits. The ruling is the cars have to stay at least halfway onto the green. The green is allowed, but it is quite dangerous to jump back onto the track. As Intersport comes around to finish his first competitive lap, we'll see what he can do. Cone has already turned in a 146.8, and Intersport does a 147.8, so he is a full second behind Cone. That is very surprising, as we expected Intersport to be the one to beat, so we'll see what he can do as he has a couple more laps of fuel in the car. Slightly got turn 4 misaligned, as Big R has his first lap was not exactly what he was looking for.
Looks as though Intersport has gone back to the pits as well after that one.
One thing to keep out for that some of these drivers will struggle with in the race is aero damage from the cones and the bollards placed around the track. As we saw Intersport clip one of those bollards coming out of turn 4, he might have gone back to pit lane just to repair some aero damage, and maybe the car is not quite handling how he wants to make some final adjustments as he comes back out on track. As we've just eclipsed the halfway mark of the second qualifying session here at Silverstone. Just under 5 minutes remaining.
So far from what you've seen, who are the winners and losers, Dylan, so far?
Very surprised by Cone's pace. Expect a close race between him and Intersport, although Intersport was the fan favorite coming into this round, as he dominated at Coda. Big R, like I said before, he's struggling with that car a little bit. Just looking for a clean race for him. Get some solid points. In LMP1, expect a very close battle. Looking forward to the next qualifying session. All 3 cars are very close. Texas seems to be the fan favorite still, after he put on a clinic that was almost matching Intersport at Coda. But this is a very balanced circuit. It has a lot of high-speed corners, couple low-speed corners to end and start the lap out with, and not super long straights like we had at Coda. So the horsepower cars and the handling cars are pretty well balanced here.
Intersport looks to see if he can improve his time. Unable to.
Doesn't improve. Was that his outlap? That might have been still.
Okay. Just under 13 minutes left to qualify.
So LMP2 drivers have about... Oh, and Racer is in. So he is on track right now. He will have the rest of LMP2 qualifying to set a flyer, but he only has 1 or 2 laps compared to the rest of the grid. So Thankfully, he was able to sort out his technical problems and will be setting a qualifying pace, as Big R has knocked it down to a 150 and returned to the pit, so he might be done for this session. If he wants another lap, he'll have to leave fairly soon, as we're coming down to 2 minutes left in this session.
Good that Racer is in. At least he gets to qualifying. There was worries that he might not get qualifying, might have to start at the rear of the grid for a driver of his caliber.
As we come into the final 90 seconds of qualifying, each of the drivers will have one more lap after this one. When the checkered flag comes out, they can finish the laps that they have started. So Intersport is coming around to start his final lap. We'll see if he can improve this lap. And he does. He almost knocks a whole second off, but he's still a quarter of a second behind Cone. Speaking of Cone, let's see what he can do, if he can improve as he's coming around to complete his penultimate lap.
Can he improve? Unable. Still set. Fastest lap of a 46.5.
Yeah,
30 seconds left.
46.5 is a pretty speedy lap, as we'll see what Racer's able to do as he's coming through onto the back straight for his first flyer. It'll be close whether he gets another lap or not. I unfortunately don't think he'll be able to set another lap, as the checkered flags come out now and the LMPH cars head out for their qualifying session.
49.4.
Not a bad lap for only having one flyer. He will be out Big R for the final spot on the qualifying podium. We'll see if Cone and Intersport can improve, as Intersport gets to pole. So
46.38 set by Intersport there.
Yeah, that's more what we were expecting from Intersport. We'll see if Cone can fight back as he's coming to the checkered flag as he comes up to the final three corners. Looks to be a very close battle in LMP2 for the front of the field. And he does not improve, so Cone's first flyer looks to be his best, as LMP2 field will be Intersport just under 0.2 of a second ahead of Cone. 3 seconds back to Racer, as Spidey has half spun it. One of the most challenging corners on the course for the prototype drivers. In the driver meeting, they were saying that they touch that curb, it sends the car into a spin, so that'll be one thing to keep an eye on.
Who do you expect to see out of the LMPH drivers today, John, out of your predictions?
The Porsches are the handling car, and with the high-speed characteristics of this course, I'd expect to see them strong, especially Texas, after his performance at Coda, as, yeah, we're seeing the outlaps come in, so these lap times are not representative of what these cars are capable of quite yet. The Audis are the straight line cars, so it'll be close to see whether they can out-qualify the Toyotas or not. I see the race pace of the Audis being quite strong, but Porsches seem to be the fan favorite this weekend. John gets a bit sideways coming off of the hangar straight. You can just see how hard these drivers are pushing. One of the key elements in this class is when to deploy their hybrid system. They can deploy it. They can deploy it anytime they want around the lap.
Deploy, a new word. When you're deploying and applying at the same time.
Indeed. They only have so much that they can use per lap. It's based around the Circuit de la Sarthe for Le Mans, and then adjusted for other track lengths. But they can deploy it on the front straight, on the back straight, wherever they deem necessary to get lap time or to make a move. So it'll be very interesting to see that play out in the race as they race wheel to wheel, as Damage sets the first lap time and returns to the pits.
A 36.4.
As both Audis set a 36.4, so very close together, very good teamwork there, as Dan in a Toyota sets a 36.6 and Spidey sets a 36.5 as John gets it sideways coming out of turn 4. So, as Texas jumps to the top with a 35.9, so the first sub-36 we've seen in qualifying. We'll see if the other drivers can match that pace as we're approaching the halfway mark. So, current running order is Porsche, Audi, Porsche, and the two Toyotas in the back. So, Toyotas might seem to be struggling as John also returns to the pits. So, both of the Audis only completing one flying lap and then returning to the pits for fresh tires. So,
as we approach the 5-minute mark, so we've got 5 minutes left of qualifying for drivers to improve on their current lap times. As it currently stands, Texas is leading the grid, along with Jonathan and UDL following P2 and 3 currently.
Damage is on an outlap, so this should not be an improvement for him. Very close in the midfield, as the gap between second and fifth, all four of those cars are separated by a mere 0.2 of a second. So, very close indeed. Be interesting to see how the LMP1 cars handle traffic here, as the lack of any truly heavy braking zones except for turn 3 will pose a challenge to these LMP1 cars. The GTE cars cannot just disappear. So, you have to see other drivers improve on their lap times as Spidey heads back to the pits for a fresh set of tires. John completing his outlap on his second flyer. So, none of the drivers able to improve off of their first lap so far, which is very interesting. You would think that as the drivers get more accustomed to the car and the track in its current state, would be able to improve on their times.
UDL improves. UDL damage, that is, as he drives off into the sand and heads back to the pits. He's set a 36.06, so he's only 100, just over 100ths of a second behind Texas.
So, nice improvement for him. Puts him well into second place as the other drivers improve, as Texas time drops it down to a 35.5. So, all the ground that damage is gained, he just lost as Texas sets down another flyer. As John crosses the line, we'll see what he can do. He does not improve, as Texas seems to be done for qualifying. John's going to head out for one more lap, so is Damage after he jumped back to the pits. We'll see if the Toyotas can jump up.
Not able to.
As driver is struggling this qualifying session.
Spidey 36.5 as we approach about 60 seconds left of qualifying. If you want to explain to our viewers, John, something I've noticed on the below the miles per hour, we have a little blue icon showing, I believe, the hybrid model. Is that right? I've lost a little bit of communication there. 20 seconds to go. As the drivers will complete the current lap that they have. Texas looks to see if he can improve on his time. He's unable, he's got a 35.5 that he has set. Follow Spidey to see better than what he currently has. He does. He's at a 36.1. So he takes over John's spot.
We'll see if Damage or Texas can improve as they come around to complete their final qualifying lap. Damage looking for half a second as he runs wide through the penultimate corner onto the front straight. He improves, but not enough. So he will finish qualifying in second, start the race on the front row, unless if Daniel can improve by quite a bit. As we see if the gas engine Toyota can improve past the diesel-powered Audis. As Texas has abandoned his lap, Daniel crosses the line, and we'll have to see if he can improve or not. He does not.
So qualifying is complete. At the front of the grid, we got Texas and UDL to look at the first row. Will there be a formation lap here, Dawn?
Yes. Spidey and
just
John.
To clarify.
Spidey and John will be on the second row, so the German marks sweeping the front two rows in LMP1. The Toyotas start 5th and 6th. In LMP2, it will be Intersport just over Cone, followed by Racer, who just out-qualified Big R. So, looks like two good races in LMP2 possibly. In GTE, it's Corvette on pole against Ford, so the classic Detroit battle, as Corvette also starts 3rd with Snipper Pig. Warrior in the second Ford starts in 4th, as the Ferraris round out the rest of the field. So just waiting on the drivers to make sure that their final setup adjustments are correct. And the formation lap will be underway in about 45 seconds or so.
Predictions here, Don?
If Texas gets a clean start and can keep damage behind him, I think he'll run away similar to how he did at Coda. However, I think it'll be a fantastic battle between the rest of the LMP1 grid, and I don't see anyone breaking away for second place. In GTE, it'll be a hard-fought battle between Chevy and Ford, and the Ferraris, unless if they have the long-term pace, they were struggling with their rear tires, so they might not. Ferraris might be struggling this race as the formation lap is underway. LMP2, Intersport's definitely the favorite, but expected to see a bigger gap in qualifying than what we did see.
Looks like Cona's lights aren't on. Have to switch them on. Explain the rules behind the lights still.
The rules are lights have to be on at all times for safety reasons. It just makes sure that the drivers can see cars better in the mirrors and are more aware of their surroundings. It's a rule that's been around for quite a while now. As the full field has their lights on. One thing you will notice, you can tell the prototypes apart from the GT cars, as the prototypes are running white headlights and the GT cars are running more of an amber or yellow headlight cover. So if you're looking at cars from afar, that is an easy way to spot that. They changed that in real life in 2018. But we have about the 2016, 2017 spec GTE cars in this game. As we have the 2013 or so spec LMP2s, and then the full 2016 LMP1H field. As the grid starts to form up as they head through Maggots and Beckett's and come onto the back straight.
So, total time, was it 2 hours or 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes. So, get some water, pop yourself a bag of popcorn now, because that's the last time you're going to have in a while to get yourself situated.
That is correct.
As the LMP1 cars head into the final area, the grid is being formed up nicely. Nice and controlled start by Texas. Thankfully, no incidents before the final corner. As we get ready to go, there are the lights, and we're green. So Texas not able to get a clean jump as damage is still there, as some of the GTE cars run wide behind. As damage runs wide in turn 1, letting Spidey through and John. Bit of contact between John and the first Toyota of Dan. As John has plummeted down the field. He is down to 10th, 12th overall. John is in last, so we'll have to see what happened. And it looks like he got connected by Snipper. And the LMP2 grid is in amongst the GTE cars, so not the start of this race that we wanted.
Currently, Texas is still taking the lead along with Spidey and Daniel. Up in the front, Union drops back to about P4 and driver P5. Clay Roger goes into P6 with Intersport P7. Kelly Koala moves up to P8 as Stella Whale in 9. Warrior P10, Racer P11. Jonathan P12, Super Pig P13. Stella finishes out with P14 with Hefty in 15 and a Big R 16. Interesting first little turns there, Don.
Yeah, indeed. That's one of the dangers with multi-class racing. If the class up ahead has problems, it stacks up into the slower classes. So unfortunately, Big R, it has dropped to the back of the field overall. So looks like we're down to a 2-horse race in LMP2, unless if Racer got away without damage, as he's fallen into the middle of the GTE field. So Porsche's at the front, starting to pull a little bit of a gap onto the rest of the field. Second between the teammates, and another 2 seconds now back to Dan in third place. At the end of the first lap, we'll see if anyone calls to the pits for damage, or whether they're going to ride it out for the first stint. As
top 5 starting to separate from the pack. They're increasing their times. Still Texas out in front, followed by Spidey and Daniel. That's the way the front 3 probably look.
As we are getting word that the incident that happened in turn 3 on lap 1 will be under review after the race ends. So, possible post-race penalty for Dan there if he got into Jonathan. We'll have to see what the stewards say after the race, as John has come into the pits for that damage at the end of lap 2. So, unable to limp around with that damage as his team calls him into the pits, as he'll take fuel and tires. No tires, as he sits waiting for the damage to be filled as the GTE cars fly by. So in GTE, there is a dandy of a battle for second, as Koala and Dale are pretty close together as they come through the first sector. Only about a second, not even a second, separating them. As the drivers start to get into their groove, being a 2.5-hour race, you have to make sure not to make any mistakes. The easiest way to gain time on competitors is if they make mistakes and you stay clean. So we'll see what they can do throughout the race, as we are only 5 minutes in. As Big R comes out of the pits after his damage on the first lap. So, as the race comes up to complete its 6th minute, still that battle between Dale and Koala forming up for the lead in GTE. Yes. As timing and scoring on the side may have glitched. It says the gap is 4 seconds, but it's nowhere near that.
I believe it's 500ths of a second according to the sectionals.
Indeed, so it'll be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out as the Ford got the jump through the chaos on lap 1, able to slip past the Corvette. We'll see how the cars handle on their tires, as this is a much more higher tire wear circuit than COTA is, as there is a lot more high-speed, high-load corners through this track, and many long corners like what they're going through now. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, as the back of the GTE grid isn't that far ahead of the leaders. It won't be long until the leaders start to get into lap traffic already. So Snipper Pig is running in a lonesome 4th at the moment after possibly hitting John. Still not sure what happened. Looked like Dan tagged John. John went for a spin, and chaos ensued as the field funneled their way through turn 3 and 4. Dale is down to about 0.4 of a second as they close in through the last corner. If he gets a good run out of this last corner, he might be able to make a move into turn 3, as he's under 1/4 of a second now. As Koala gets it all wrong through the first 2 corners. Dale's looking for a way by. He is right on the rear diffuser of that Ford GT. Even though these are the slowest cars on the track at the moment, they are still full-out race cars. The downforce on these machines is nothing to joke around with, as the LMP-H field is starting to make its way through the GTE field.
Jax is still out in the lead. Closing the gap off Spidey. Followed by Daniel. UDL still sitting in P4. Driver P5. Cone Dodger P6. Inner Sport in the LMP2s. And P7. Racer P8. Jonathan is now in P9, followed by the Cuddly Koala.
As Dale goes for the pass for the lead. Not able to get it done at the end of the back straight. Dale looking for every way by possible. Now again, keep in mind these GTE cars are full-on race cars, but the LMP-H field is so fast with their hybrid systems. This will let you know just how fast they are. His damage is into the pits, surprisingly. So, possible contact with one of the GTE cars as he was coming through the grid for damage. So, not the race that Audi wanted. As you can see in the background there on that front straight camera, Audi is a sponsor at this track, so not exactly the way they were looking to have their Silverstone race start.
Tight battle here for P10 at the moment. Seems to be the only battle that's really going on.
Yeah, the field can be pretty spread out through these races, as strategy is more of a factor in these races, as the extra 30 minutes means an extra pit stop through these for these GTE cars and the prototypes as well. As it's currently Ford in first and third, with Chevy in second and fourth. Actually, no, Snipper has fallen behind one of the Ferraris, so a possible issue for Snipper there, as Cone Dodger has taken the lead in LMP2. Dale looking for a way by on the hangar straight, uses the slipstream, tries to get a run, pulls alongside, but it's just not quite there as they head off the straight and they hit each other.
Contact.
Indeed, so little argy-bargy, as they say. Dale flashes his lights at Koala, trying to let him know he's there, as indeed Snipper has fallen behind Hefty, so a possible spin for Snipper, as he is running a slightly wounded car after that first lap incident still, as Big R's trying to make his way back up through the field as he's about to go a lap down to the LMP2 leaders, as the LMP2 leaders start to catch their tail end of the GTE field in a lap or two. So about equal distant in the LMP2 lead, still very tight for the GTE lead, as Texas is coming up to already put a lap on the Audi, so again, not the race that they wanted. As Dale has made his way past Koala for the GTE lead. Not sure where that happened. It looked like it could have happened at the end of the back straight. It's probably the most likely place that happened. As we'll see if Koala can charge back, as Dale's already pulled out almost a 3/4 of a second lead over Koala. As he takes out the cones at the end of the hangar straight. So
now it looks like we may have a secondary battle going on here at the moment, and in the sport, slowly battling each other again.
indeed, as they come up to approach Big R. Oh, and Cone spun it. That's exactly what we were talking about in qualifying. He just barely caught the curb in the old turn one and spun it, as Big R has also spun it. As he's looking for a spot to rejoin the track and does so. So looks like both of those drivers got away without damage. But unfortunately, Cone has lost the lead in LMP2 and a heap of time as Damage tries desperately to stay on the lead lap. So
looks like we may have a three-way battle here as well as Damage, Cone Dodge, and Jonathan. Uriel making his way.
ooh, Texas runs wide through turn 1. Able to get it back together. Lost quite a bit of time though. It lost about 3 seconds to his teammate in second place. So again, this is the struggle that we have to see throughout the race as the LMPH cars lap the slower classes. They're desperate not to lose time, but have to be careful not to damage the car. So Intersport's goal now is just to run a clean and consistent pace. He is about 10 seconds, I'd call that about 7 or 8 seconds ahead of Cone Dodger. As long as he just runs a consistent pace, gets through traffic without any damage, and ticks off the laps, he should be able to keep that gap where it is. But again, interesting to see the pace that Cone has been showing this race. We expected Intersport to dominate again, but it seems like Cone has got a really good grasp of his LMP2 car. As leaders make their way through the GTE traffic. Another battle we have slightly forming up is for 13th overall, 4th in GTE, as Snipper is right on the back of Hefty. Now, one thing that a lot of fans overlook is while the LMP1 drivers can lose time with traffic, so can the GTE cars. There's an art to being passed by faster cars to save the most amount of time. Snipper Pig goes for the over-under, not able to get it done. Searching for a way by to get Hefty. Hefty pushing wide. Seems like he's really struggling to get the back end settled. It seems like the back end steps out, and as a result, he has to correct the car and pushes wide through these corners. So it looks like the Ferraris were not able to get the back end planted as they hoped they would during testing this week.
Can he get on the inside?
Now, one thing you might be seeing is it's about a 20 to 30 second gap from 4th, which is Hefty, to 3rd, which is currently Warrior in the Ford. Snipper might just be looking for that 4th place. He might not be looking for a podium. It's a 2 hour and 30 minute race. We're down to 2 hours and 10 minutes as Daniel has a bit of a moment coming out of turn 3. But with 2 hours and 10 minutes remaining in this race, Snipper might not be, as Snipper has gotten the pass done, but he might have just been waiting to bid his time for Hefty to make a mistake, which he might have, as Hefty gets the position back. So Hefty able to do the over-under through turn 3 as they are side-by-side down the hanger straight. Hefty has to give in, fall behind.
Contact, yeah.
Indeed. One thing with the GTE cars, while they do have a decent amount of downforce, they are not as aero-sensitive as the prototypes. So they can lean on each other a little bit more. Contact still isn't really liked by the marshals, but a little bit of rubbing in GTE is part of the GT charm of the class. So, Damage and John are still both on the lead lap as they are back to 5th and 6th in the overall. As John is still fighting to stay on the lead lap. There are no safety cars in this field, in this series, apologies. So, as... Oh no, he's fighting to stay ahead of Spidey, my apologies, as both of the Audis have fallen a lap down. So... Daniel currently in 3rd place is almost a full sector behind the Porsches already, so... Both of the Porsches putting on a clinic this race instead of just Texas. Intersport still leading ahead of Cone, although Cone has closed that gap to 2 seconds, Spyro, so interesting to see Cone close back up.
Looks like Cone's improving, as is Intersport. Race is still in P9. The gap between Dale and McCully Koala is out to about 2 seconds. Koala's got some ground to try and make up. It's the faster car fast.
As Big R is unfortunately back into the pits, so more damage for that car as, again, a miserable start to his campaign as he has missed his pit stall accidentally, so not at all what he wanted to have for the opening 2 rounds of his championship. As Hefty has fallen behind Stollard, so looks like there's a bit of damage on that car too, yes?
I think it's the front of the car. They may have spun and hit a wall or hit another vehicle. He's lost significant time and snipper. And now we got a race between Starlight and Hefty.
One thing that's interesting is he's definitely lost time to Stollard, but it doesn't look like he lost time to Snipper. So I wonder if those 2 cars got together. As the teammates go side by side through the last corner, giving each other more than ample room. As it looks like Stollard lifted to let Hefty by, and no, he hasn't. Keeping it on the outside, as now he has to lift to get back onto the track across the grass, so... A little bit of a battle between the 2 teammates playing out. Yeah, this track is, even though the Ferrari enjoys more of a twisty circuit, these long sweeping corners don't really help the Ferrari out that much, as it has one of the shorter wheelbases in the class. This track just does not suit the prancing horse. These long sweeping corners support the bigger and longer American cars. So Texas at the front still, pulling out up to 13 seconds ahead of Spidey, who is about 24 to 25 seconds ahead of Dan, running in a lonesome 3rd place. As Dan is right between the 50-second gap between Spidey and driver. 25 seconds either way. Both of the Toyotas just running a relatively clean race as driver goes wide. No harm, no foul. Just ticking the laps away. Damage and John still only separated by 10 seconds as they try to close back in onto the back of the Toyotas as Stollard is in the pits. So thought I saw it on the stream on the old front straight. It looks like he might have clipped the pit wall through the kink onto that old pit straight. Thought it was possibly lag, so I didn't say anything. But Dale still indeed kept it on the green, so it should be good.
So there's not much of racing. There's no real close battles. This goes off. I was about to say he was a second off in a score, but he pushes that out to over 2. It's almost 2 seconds. Texas is still the leader.
Coming up to the end of the first 30 minutes of the race, as we are 28 minutes in. As the battle for your LMP2 lead is the closest on track right now. As everyone has more or less settled into their groove, just trying to tick away the laps as Stollard is back out with a clean car, so is Big R. As John is in the pits, as that is another early stop, so John must have lost it again. The Audis are just struggling to have the consistency in the series so far. As John gets his damage completed, damage repair completed, and heads back out onto the track as he has fallen behind the 2 LMP2 leaders overall. So, unfortunately, it seems like John has a long 2 hours ahead of him to try to catch back up to the Toyotas and his teammate.
Racer sitting in a comfortable position. He's got 50 seconds either way, so it looks like he'll be sitting there for a while. Cuddly Koala is now pushed back to 4 seconds. For a while. 6 seconds behind the Warrior. Sorry, 6 seconds in front of the Warrior.
Interesting to see that grow just a couple laps ago. That was the top 3 in GTE were equally spaced with about 2 seconds between them, so.
Battle between Pig and Hefty is now going out to at least 8 seconds.
Yeah, it seems like Pig is able to keep the tires under him for longer as the Ferraris seem to be struggling with the long-term tire degradation.
She's Stollard now 46 seconds behind Hefty, so there goes that race.
And who's the Audi beside him? As that might be John, who's missing his front clip. That is John, and John might have had another incident. as he comes into the pit lane. He has. So that it's 2 consecutive laps that John has had an incident, as John must be getting frustrated and making moves that he might not be able to make, pushing the car too hard, unfortunately. So not at all the race that John wanted.
John really struggling now as we just approach the 2-hour mark. Racing left, so he'll sit there for a while for his damage repaired, as he'll probably shorten the gap between Racer and himself.
As Racer may move up another position overall, but should John keep it clean through the rest of the race, he'll easily make those positions back up. As the LMP1H cars have a combined 1,000 plus horsepower with their hybrid systems, to where these older generation of LMP2 cars are only running about 450 to 500 horsepower, and then the GTE cars are running about 450 to 500 as well.
13 seconds in between Racer and Jonathan.
And that will balloon back up as Jonathan is back out on track in the faster class vehicle. As Texas is back off the track again. Where is that? That is coming off of the back straight.
Second through. But he's slowly making time on Texas. Around 7 seconds off the race at 8.
Indeed. So, that off for Texas cost him a little bit of time as Daniel makes his way through the GTE field yet again. Oh, and again, that curve that I've been talking about all race long. Driver put 2 wheels up on that curb, and it just spun the car sideways.
It's going to allow damage to gain some time as he's only 11 seconds off driving in.
Indeed, as yeah, driver struggling with that car. He's towards the end of their first fuel stint, so one of their stops was going to be a short fill anyway. It should be an LMP-H, as he does come into pit lane, so that will promote damage up to 4th place. As the battle for the LMP2 lead starts to heat up, that gap is down to under 3 seconds. In fact, it's under 2. Kona's down 1.5 seconds behind Intersport as they are coming to the end of their fuel stint, so Intersport should be pitting this lap. As the driver is moving back down pit lane. Damage has indeed gotten past. Meanwhile, Big R has retired from this race, unfortunately. So we are down to 15 cars on track.
Surprised about that, Dylan?
I am. It's been a very unfortunate start of the season to Big R, as in the previous race, he got taken out due to someone lagging out of the lobby and started the race with no rear wing and tons of suspension damage to the rear of his car, and then just unable to keep the race clean this time around. As Intersport's in the pits, but Cone Dodger stays out, so it's interesting to see that Cone Dodger is able to get fuel farther into the stint than Intersport. Unsure of how much fuel Cone has left, but Intersport sitting in pit lane. Wonder if Intersport had some damage too. Oh no, Intersport's still waiting on fuel as he takes a full fuel load of 65 liters. Nice and gentle run out of the pit lane. As he must have a pretty long first gear, as he did not get any wheel spin coming out of that pit stall. So we'll have to see how many more laps Cone can do on his fuel stint and see if he can save another stint. He's still got 10 liters, so that's another 2 or 3 laps. So interesting to see that he's able to extend the fuel stint. It probably won't add up to him having a lesser number of pit stops in total, but it does mean he will be able to short fill the car on his last pit stop, where Intersport may have to do a full fill. Because Intersport did a 35-minute stint, which means he would pit at the 70 and 100-minute mark.
Dragging out that time is now 5 seconds out of the whale, so Nail is doing well with creating that gap. To Warrior, not really there, but he's still around 8 seconds. Ultimate Pig, he is 30 seconds on Warrior now, and he's got about 15 seconds on FT. FT is now the last driver, as I think we may have had another retirement.
Indeed we have. We're down to 5 GTE cars. So we still have Dale, the Cuddly Koala, Warrior, Snipper, and Hefty. So Stallard has retired from this race, unfortunately. So attrition starting to take its toll as Koala is into the pit, still has plenty of fuel, so that would be a pit stop for damage. Or these GTE cars can do about just about an hour. So he may actually be short fueling on 2 stops as racers and for a scheduled pit stop. So one thing that the GTE drivers can do is they can break this race up into 50-minute segments and short fill the car 40 to 50-minute segments, as Koala pit exactly at the 40-minute mark. So
looks as though he might lose to his position to Snipper Pig as well.
indeed, as Koala is just now coming out of the pit, so that may be a battle that forms in a couple laps.
Up the car with taking 3 liters.
Indeed, making sure to get a full fuel load on the car.
Racer still in the pits.
As he might have had damage from that turn 1 incident, which would explain his lack of pace. Unsure if that's what it is or not.
Texas is improving his times to Spidey, who's now built a 12-second lead. Spidey is well ahead in front of Daniel, he's got a 27-second lead, and then Damage is at least over a minute behind.
So, Racer is still in the pits. So not sure if there's, as he's heading down pit lane finally, so he either had severe damage on that car or went AFK for a moment.
Got some ground to work, Racer does now.
Indeed, as one of the Audis went off there. That would be the 7 car of Jonathan. Indeed it is. So, looks like he was able to keep it off the wall, but again, John struggling with consistency in this car. Just can't seem to keep the back end planted. As Spidey is into the pits, looks like a scheduled stop. He stopped a bit early, but Cone is also in. So Cone cutting it very close. He's down to 0.2 of a liter.
He takes out the pit crew.
Indeed. As Spidey returns the favor.
He certainly does. He goes, cop this.
Thankfully, this game is like iRacing, to where everything goes ghost in the pit lane, so no contact can be had.
How disappointing.
So, at the front, still yet to pit is Texas time. Now with a 45-second lead over Daniel, who has also yet to pit. The first of the pitters is Spidey, followed by Damage, who has pit a couple times for repairs, followed by Driver, who has also pitted early for repairs, and then almost a full lap back to John from Driver, as John has had multiple incidents. Not the race that he wanted. In LMP2, it is Intersport, who is 16 seconds ahead of Cone as his timing and scoring fixes itself. Working his way through pretty good GTE battle currently between Snipper and Koala for the final spot on the podium, as Cone is still running in second place, over a lap ahead of the GTE field.
Dale is leading the GT field. He's got a 13-second gap to Warrior, who has a 15-second gap to Racer, who has a 19-second gap to the Pig, and looks like Cuddly Koala has improved on his times. Our first little race in the last 15-20 minutes.
Indeed, as we have passed the 45-minute mark of the race. An hour, 43 minutes remaining as Koala goes massively wide. off of the back straight and uses that to get the run on Snipper. Damage making his way past the battle to put yet another lap on Koala and Snipper. As Spyro, see if you can focus on Koala for a second so I can get his car number and give him a warning for track limits. R69.
Upset there because you would have been able to see in his mirrors Koala going off there. Just as though Texas is going to head to the pits, which he does. Good scheduled stop as he's only got about a litre, just over a litre of fuel left.
So it should be a full service. Completely clean runs for both of the Porsches so far, so really able to stretch their legs and show what they're made of.
I think Daniel won't be too far away. He's only got just over 2 litres of fuel left.
Indeed, he should be in this time by, as indeed he does take the right side of the track, and into pit lane he comes. Get it slowed down to 60 clicks, or 37 miles per hour. That shows you the lead Texas had, as he's already out of the pits by the time Daniel comes in. So Spidey will be able to get past Daniel, as he's already coming up to the front straight. About to lap John again. As Daniel is now taking fuel. One interesting thing with these cars, I do believe they still have the old LMPH rules to where you have to take tires and then fuel until you can leave your pit box. Fueling is not allowed to be done at the same time as tires. So Damage will be back into the pit soon, as he's down to about 4 liters. As John does have his lights on, but due to his previous damage, there is a glitch in the game to where his headlights are not showing. You can see that his taillights are on, but his headlights are not. So Dale still leading comfortably in GTE, up to 15 seconds over Warrior in the first of the Fords, running second in GTE.
FT's going into the pits now for the GTX. Michael probably unfortunately lose a lot of time out of his scheduled stop to extend his time just a bit big over to the minute mark.
As this is his first pit stop, I do believe. No. Is it? Yes, I think it is.
I think it's his first one. Yeah, he hasn't had any issues.
Yeah, so pretty clean race in GTE so far, with the contenders who are still running. As damage.
Damage.
Yep.
Jump into the pit lane. His scheduled stop.
Nice, clean, and quick stop for Hefty as he's already back out. So, once timing and scoring resets itself, we'll be able to tell you the gap. It looks like he's a lap down to Warrior in second place, as indeed he is. He's about a minute behind Koala.
I think it's Snippet Pink that's...
Oh, indeed it is. My bad.
Warrior P11 is going to be 32nd. Lead to Koala. GG is starting to extend the gaps. As Hefty has a lot of work.
Damage is on his way out. One interesting thing of note is just how efficient these LMP1 cars are as far as fuel. The GTE cars can run about 60 minutes with 85 liters compared to the 45 to 50 minutes that these LMP1 cars can eke out with only 50 liters. So even though they are the fastest cars on the track, they are some of the most fuel efficient. So both of the Audis have just over a minute to the cars ahead of them for position as John runs wide to get past one of the Fords. So both of the Audis hunting down the Toyotas and have about a minute's work to do. Not sure what happened on that pit cycle, but Cone definitely has fallen back from Intersport as that gap is almost 11 seconds now, so...
Fair distance.
Indeed. Racer, after having possible damage on the start and having a long fuel stop, long pit stop for his first stop for fuel and tires, almost back up to the top of the GTE grid. Speaking of the top of the GTE grid, it won't be long until we see the top two cars compete to see who has the faster pit crew. So Texas Time proving again how dominant he in that Porsche can be. 20 seconds over his teammate in second place, full minute back to the first non-Porsche. So he definitely has these Porsches tuned up to 11. The field is pretty evenly spread out now as we're closing in on the first hour of the race complete. About 90 minutes remaining. So, as we close in on minute 57, not much has changed. The rest of the GTE leaders should be pitting soon. As we follow Texas around. Comes up to put another lap on the 63 of Snipper. So, as it seems like Spyro has possibly disconnected from the party and the game. Bear with me as I try to take control of the cameras. Hopefully, if this does make me leave the room, I will join back in as soon as I can, as it does not. So, I unfortunately do not have controls of the cameras. I will leave and rejoin as soon as I can to get control of that. So, bear with us as we figure this out. Also, it might give us a chance to recycle through timing and scoring. And yes, I know, as timing and scoring was obviously glitched. As we are back in the lobby and go into spectate mode. Now that there are drivers who have left the session, we are able to join that spectate mode. Apologies for the inconvenience as the game reloads. First hour is complete of the UDL WEC round number 2 at Silverstone, as this is the first round of the Endurance Championship. Double points are awarded for this round compared to the sprint rounds. There is a sub-championship and a full season championship. The sprint championship will only be the sprint races that are 2 hours in length, and the endurance championship is the full endurance series that is... Oh no, I am still streamer, so I still do not have control of the cameras. As Warrior and Snipper are both in the pits. I will leave and try to sort this out. I apologize for the inconvenience. Some upcoming races. F1 had an off week of this week for the Endurance Cup, for the Endurance race tonight. They will be back in action next week, I do believe. In 2 weeks, we will have the third round of the UDL WEC season, which will be the second sprint race. As I will try to see if I can get out of broadcaster view. Oh no, this may be bad. Let's see if I can get into a car. No. Oh boy, folks. This may be unfortunate. I am unsure if I am able to change cameras or not, as I am not going to broadcast the stream. Just watching Texas's time as he continues to run away at the front. Unfortunately, I think I may have to stop the stream, restart it, and restart my application. So I will try to restart the application without restarting the stream. But when I close the application here, it may stop streaming. So bear with us as we sort out these technical difficulties. Again, sorry about this.